So, how does it work? Well, to explain that, we need to go right back to the most fundamental question of all and say, what is it that makes for a successful business in the first place, right? And really, there are three things that apply to every kind of successful business. The first, no surprise here, I hope, is desirability. If people don't want what we're selling, we've kind of got a fundamental problem there, right? The second is profitability. If it costs us more to make than we can sell it for, eventually we're going to run out of cash or not be able to give a return to our investors, right? So we've got profitability. And then the third is longevity. The more days we're making that profit for, the better, and nobody wants to buy from or work for a business that might not be around tomorrow. So on a very simplistic level, you can say that a smart decision is one that aims to improve all three of those, or at least makes an informed trade-off between them. You might sacrifice a little bit of profit to build a really durable advantage. You might delete a feature that's kind of only a nice to have, but is very expensive. It makes the product a little less desirable, but makes it a lot more profitable. Right? Really, really simple. Now, what makes doing that in practice difficult, quite simply, is change. What it takes to be desirable or profitable or to have that longevity is changing all the time, because our environment is always changing. And we can think of those changes as falling into three fundamental categories too, right? The first of which is the customer. If who they are or what they want changes, we've got to consider that in our decision-making or planning, because without customers, we don't have a business. Nothing clever there. Second layer of change, if you like, is the market. Maybe a new rival comes along, maybe they change the regulations, maybe our category starts to decline. Either way, if we experience changes to the market, we've got to factor that into our decision-making too. And then we've got our organization. Right? Maybe we've got a lot more cash than we had in the early days, but we're not as nimble as we once were. If we implement one system, that then constrains the direction that we can go in from there. So we've got these three layers of change too. Now here's where things get a little more interesting. Going back to the overarching theme that everything is interconnected in a business, what we can see is that any one of our three goals can be impacted by any one of these three layers of change. So if we arrange them as a grid, hence the name, it gives us 9 factors which together determine the success or failure of every single business. These 9 factors. So what are they? Starting on the top left, what customers find desirable depends entirely on their wants and needs. Right? They don't want or need it, not desirable. Other people in the market will be aiming to satisfy those same wants and needs. That's the rivalry we face. If they're doing a better job, we can expect our stuff to be less desirable. And then we actually have to have some kind of offering for people to buy. The organization has to create something, right? So desirability emerges from the interplay of these three things. If wants and needs stay the same, and the offering stays the same, and one of our rivals does something stupid, they get caught up in some kind of scandal, we can expect desirability to go up without changing anything. Looking across at the profitability column, no surprise that customers give us revenue and the organization incurs costs, but we've also got a market force here in the middle called bargaining power. Every business is sandwiched between its customers on one hand and its suppliers on the other hand. Everybody wants the best deal for themselves. So whoever has the strongest negotiating position in that arrangement gets to keep the lion's share of the profit created by the whole value chain. Looking at the last column, longevity, well, as I've already said, without customers we don't have a business. The larger, more stable or more committed our customer base is, the more insulated we are from change. If those customers are locked into our ecosystem, that can give us a business that can last an extremely long time. The ease with which other people in the market can copy what we're doing, our imitability, can have a huge impact on our longevity. And then finally, we've got our own ability to adapt. Sooner or later, a major change comes to every kind of industry or market, and if we've engineered out of our business the ability to respond to that change, we'll be finished in no time. So those are the 9 boxes of the grid. Now, I'd just like to pause for a minute and draw your attention to some immediate conclusions that we can make, even just looking at these 9 simple boxes. Right? Really basic conclusions. The first of which is that all 9 of these boxes matter. Right? So you can't pick and choose which ones you want to pay attention to. You don't want to go to the trouble of launching a really polished product and spending a fortune on advertising just to find out that it doesn't meet anybody's wants and needs. But it happens all the time, obviously. We also don't want to try and make an entire product out of what is just a feature to some much bigger rival. All we do is we prove the opportunity to them, and then they say, great, we'll take it from here, and they push us out of the market because it's too easy to imitate. Right? So all 9 of these things matter. The second point is that you can't change any one of them without it causing a change to at least one other, sometimes all of the others. Right? So here's a fairly common pattern that we see to illustrate what I'm talking about. A business cuts its costs to increase their profitability, but they do it in such a way that it starts to impact the quality of the offering. Customers aren't too happy about that. They start leaving, or new customers stop buying when word of mouth spreads, or word spreads that the quality has suffered, and revenues start to decline, and all we've really done is cost cut our way into a less profitable business, and now we've got to spend more money trying to defect these problems, or trying to win over new customers who are skeptical. And this brings me on to the third conclusion, which is that particularly in organizations of scale, the biggest challenge isn't to be better at our job. It's not competence, it's actually coordination, because what really determines the success of most organizations is the latent impact of the decisions that we're making on these other parts of the grid. Right?